I didn't slay the monster under the stairs. I fucked it. Now, every horror movie trailer makes me hard, and I can't tell if I've conquered my fear or just married it. I was 6 years old the first time I heard the thing breathing. We lived in a duplex off base in Virginia, of those temporary houses that always smelled like someone else's cigarettes. My bedroom door faced the basement steps, and at night the darkness there wasn't empty. It had weight, a texture. I'd lie there, covers pulled to my chin, and I'd imagine it unfurling from the bottom step, a creature with too many joints, limbs like fence posts wrapped in black horsehair, and eyes the color of a gas flame. Wild Mike from Barnyard That Kids movie, but stretched into a nightmare. Long limbs, black hair, big blue eyes that glowed just enough to find me. I'd hear its knuckles drag on concrete, then the sprint, feet slapping, nails scratching, the thing lunging up the stairs while I threw myself out of bed and ran for the kitchen, the living room, anywhere with light. I never looked back. I just ran and slammed the door and stood there shaking, certain that if I'd been one step slower, it would have caught me and torn me open. We moved every couple of years, military brat life, but the basement monster moved with us. New house, new basement, same shape, same gallop. I never told anyone. You don't tell your dad, a Marine, that you're scared of a monster. You learn to run faster. Then, around 15, I stopped running just to stop. My legs slowed mid-sprint, and I realized my heart was hammering for another reason entirely. I hit my late teens, and the shape of my own desire started to clarify. I realized I was attracted to men. That was its own kind of darkness, a secret I kept down in the same basement. And then, in my early 20s, I finally said the word homosexual. I came out to friends, to family. The monster stayed in the basement, but now it had a different quality. The fear hadn't gone anywhere. I still ran up those stairs, but somewhere in my mind, the creature started to look familiar. I was maybe 17, scrolling through porn on a laptop in my bedroom. I don't remember the sight, but I remember the image, a hairy, long-limbed figure, all shadow and muscle, pinning someone down. It wasn't exactly my monster, but it was close. Same wild hair, same unnatural reach. My heart kicked, my stomach dropped, and then something else stirred. I stared at the screen, and for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like running. I felt curious. That's when the idea slipped in, quiet and shameful. What if, instead of it killing me, it took me? What if the chase ended differently? I started doing it deliberately. Every time I had to go upstairs from the basement, I'd let the fantasy unspool. I'd imagine those long arms wrapping around my waist, pulling me back into the dark. I'd imagine the thing pressing against me, growling in my ear. I'd think it's not going to rip me apart. It's going to fuck me. And suddenly, my legs weren't pumping in panic. My heart was racing for a whole different reason. Within 2 weeks, I stopped running. I walked up those stairs. I didn't slam the door anymore. I'd even pause at the top, look back into the darkness, and whisper something stupid to myself. Oh no, step monster, what are you doing? Just to make myself laugh. It was my little joke, my private reprogramming. I thought I'd one. I told no one, of course. It was too weird, too shameful, but I'd cured my phobia. I could sit in a dark room. I could walk through the house at night without that primal sprint. The monster was still there, but now it was my secret companion. Something I'd sometimes think about when I was alone, when I wanted to feel that heat in my stomach. I'd masturbate to the thought of it. Same blue eyes, the black hair, the impossible strength hand. Then I'd go about my day. For years, it was just this private, ridiculous victory. Then I started watching horror movies again. I'd avoided them since childhood. My friends put on The Conjuring, and I sat there expecting the old terror. Instead, when the ghost appeared, when the tension ratcheted, I felt my face flush. Not fear, that same heat. I shifted in my seat, confused. Then the jump scare came, and my body responded like it was foreplay. I thought it was a fluke. But then I watched Hereditary alone. The attic scene, the crawling on the ceiling. I was supposed to be terrified. Instead, my breath went shallow, my hands gripping the couch cushions for a reason that had nothing to do with horror. I started testing myself. Horror podcasts, true crime narrations, analog horror on YouTube. Every time the music swelled, every time the narrator described a predator in the dark, my body lit up. I'd catch myself leaning forward, pulse quickening, lips parted. Exact physiological response I used to have running up those stairs, but now it all routed to arousal. That's when the real dread set in. I tried to watch a slasher last week. A classic. The killer was stalking a woman through a dark house, and I was scared for her. I was turned on. I paused the movie, sat in the silence, and I felt something crack inside me. This wasn't a funny story anymore. This wasn't a quirky coping mechanism. I had rewired my brain so thoroughly that terror and desire were the same circuit. The monster ID spent my childhood fleeing had become the only thing that could truly turn me on. I sat there in the dark of my apartment, the movie frozen on a frame of the killer's face, and I realized I can't experience fear as fear anymore. I can't watch a horror movie without feeling like I'm watching porn. I can't listen to a scary story without my mind drifting to those blue eyes, those long arms, the weight of that creature on top of me. I've tried to unlearn it. I've tried to go back to imagining it killing me, just to reset. But my brain doesn't want to go there. It's like trying to unsee a face. The sexual association is burned in. And the worst part, I'm still ashamed. Not of being gay. That part I made peace with years ago. I'm ashamed that I did this to myself. I deliberately conditioned my own fear response into a fetish, and now I can't uncouple them. I tell myself it's not hurting anyone, that it's just a strange quirk. But every time I try to immerse myself in a horror movie, every time the atmosphere builds, and I feel that familiar throb instead of a chill, I feel this quiet horror of my own. The horror of knowing you've broken something inside yourself, and you can't remember how to fix it. Sometimes I still go down to the basement, just to see. I stand at the bottom of the steps, in the dark, and I listen. I wait for the sound of knuckles dragging on concrete. It never comes. The silence feels like an absence, like the thing left the moment I stopped being afraid of it. Or maybe it's still there, waiting for me to run. But I don't run anymore. I just stand there, pulse steady, and I wonder if I'll ever be scared again. I wonder if I even want to be.
Hello, I'm Dr. Julian Reed. What we're examining here is not a case of human-on-human manipulation, but something far more intimate: the self-conditioning of a psyche. The antagonist in this narrative is not a personate, is a creature born entirely of the subject's own fear architecture. A phobic object repurposed through deliberate, repeated erotic association, until the original threat response was overwritten. Clinically, this is a form of autosexual counter-conditioning, and it reveals something both ingenious and quietly devastating about the brain's plasticity. We begin with a classic childhood phobia: fear of the dark, embodied by a specific predatory entity. The creature is described with obsessive precision: long limbs, black hair, blue eyes. This level of detail indicates the phobia was not vague but crystallized, likely formed during a developmental period when the brain is most susceptible to imprinting. The military brat lifestyle, with its frequent moves, likely meant the basement was the one constant site of displacement, a liminal space that absorbed all the unspoken anxieties of rootlessness. Then comes the intervention. In late adolescence, the subject discovers two things: his sexual orientation and a visual echo of his monster in pornography. The decision to reimagine the chase as sexual was not random. It was a survival strategy, executed with the precision of someone who recognized that the only way to diffuse a terror was to reroute its current. He didn't slay the monster, he married it, and for a time it worked. The phobia dissolved. The stairs were walked, not sprinted. But the brain does not delete pathways, it only reinforces the ones we use. By repeatedly activating the fear circuit and immediately coupling it with sexual reward, he did not cure the phobia, transformed it into a fetish. The monster became a conditioned stimulus for arousal. And because the original fear was never processed but simply repurposed, the two emotional states fused. Now, any stimulus that resembles the original terror, a horror movie, a suspenseful podcast, triggers the new, merged response. He cannot access pure fear because his brain now reads fear as desire. What makes this tragic is the loneliness of it. He carried this private solution in silence, telling no one because he understood it was shameful. But shame is not the same as pathology. What I see is a young man who, without guidance, attempted to heal himself and succeeded too well. He did not account for permanence. He did not realize that once you teach your amygdala to confuse terror with longing, you cannot simply unteach it. The creature he created to protect himself has now become the only lens through which he can experience an entire genre of human emotion. So I sit with this. Was his solution a triumph or a quiet tragedy? He conquered his fear, but at the cost of ever being truly frightened again. He rewired his own brain to survive, and now he mourns the very terror he spent years trying to kill. The question I leave you with is the one he asked himself when you condition yourself out of a phobia by making it the source of your deepest pleasure. Have you actually healed it, or have you simply given the monster a new way to own you?